Welcome back in. It is the local and community issues and answers right here with Jonathan Lawson. We're so thankful to have in our studios today Angelica Lewis Bolin.
That's it, yes.
And you are the victim's advocate for the Williamsburg Police Department.
Yes.
Welcome in. Tell us about your work.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I am a victim's advocate for domestic violence and sexual assault victims. And I have been at that post at the Williamsburg Police Department through a special grant through the Justice and Public Safety Cabinet for 15 years now. I've been an advocate for 17 years. I was one of the first advocates in the area specializing in domestic violence and sexual assault.
There's so much of that going around today. Now, describe parts of your work. What do you do? Work with people, counsel them, talk to them? What do you do?
I do a little bit of everything. When I first started my position, I spent the first 2 years really trying to learn about domestic violence and learning about a community role and what type of help that I can play. It's kind of funny that if you ask people what I do, victim advocate is not the first title that comes to mind because there's a lot that is entailed in that with a community liaison. But basically the job as a victim's advocate is I work with the court system and I become a liaison between the criminal justice system and a victim of domestic violence who is attempting to use the criminal justice system as a means to escape a violent relationship.
Right. And a lot of this is drug oriented. You got all these different types of things like that in our communities. What's some things that we as the community need to watch out for, people getting into domestic violence?
Well, one of the most common things that I hear as a victim's advocate, and I hear this, I travel a lot, I speak to a lot of different groups, and even from the victims themselves, they will ask me, well, don't I deserve to be hit? Or if I stay in this relationship, doesn't that mean that I deserved at least part of this responsibility? And what I would really like to get people to understand in the community in general is that domestic violence is a process. Statistically, it takes an average of 24 months for a perpetrator to actually physically hit a victim. Within that 24 months, there is a lot of things going on, but two main things. The first thing is to seclude the victim, to make sure that she has no type of social support or family support, and try to get them all to themselves. So by the time that actual first hit does come, they won't be able to contact anyone. The second thing that is happening is just a degradation of the victim, telling the victim that she's too fat, too stupid, too ugly, and that she deserves this abuse.
Well, there's a difference between a couple having an argument and a domestic violence outbreak. Some people have even lost their lives, because of domestic violence. This is a serious, serious thing.
Absolutely. The definition of domestic violence is it is a pattern of abuse that's progressive, and that is different than somebody having an argument with their child over, something, or with a regular argument. There's a pattern of control and behavior that we look for in domestic violence. Sometimes an abused victim doesn't even have to be hit. They can be emotionally and mentally abused as well.
And it's not just between like a married couple, a spouse, a husband or a wife. It can be between your children and mothers or fathers.
Well, absolutely. We believe that 99% of all domestic violence is learned behavior, and most of the time the children that grow up in that either go on to be victims or perpetrators themselves. Now, when you're saying that, it doesn't mean that, all the boys will be perpetrators and all the females will be abuse victims. It can certainly interchange, and you can get into a relationship. A male is, it's common for a male to be an abuse victim as well.
Right. And what do we as the public, if we know about somebody having domestic violence, we need to report it. We need to get involved and say, hey, what can we do to help these people?
The best thing for the public to do, and this is what I always tell someone who is friends with a domestic violence victim, they'll come to my house or they'll come to my office and they'll say, help her. She's in a serious situation. She doesn't understand that she's in danger. And also with the progression of domestic violence, it takes a progression for someone to exit out of a domestic violence situation as well.
Right.
So my advice would be, if you know someone And really, domestic violence touches just about everybody we know.
Right.
Everybody here knows a family member, a friend, somebody that's struggling with a domestic violence issue. So just to be patient with them, to support them, let them know that you know what's going on, and when they get ready to leave or they need extra support, that you are there willing. We have abuse shelters that are located out of the area, and a lot of times the victims don't want to use those shelters because they are so far away. But we always say that we live in such a small community. If an abuse victim went to their mother's house or their friend's house, that's the first place that a perpetrator would look for them. So to leave, go out of the area, and be with other people that have experienced the same things that they have,
Right.
and to be with specialized counselors is really a blessing.